the Lord of sea and sky. I have heard my people cry, all who dwell in dark and sin, my hand will save. I who made the stars of night, I will make their darkness bright. Who will bear my light to them? Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart. I, the Lord of snow and rain, I have borne my people's pain. I have wept for love of them. They turn away. I will break their hearts of stone, give them hearts for love alone. I will speak my word to them. Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart. I, the Lord of wind and flame, I will tend the poor and lame. I will set a feast for them. My hand will save. Finest bread I will provide, till their hearts be satisfied. I will give my life to them. Whom shall I send? Here I am, Lord. Is it I, Lord? I have heard you calling in the night. I will go, Lord, if you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart. Oh, I will hold your people in my heart.
This is our second week, lesson 2 of Samuel. We will talk about his youth and his calling. So I thought this song was appropriate. And the question is, what is God like? It's a question we've been asking and trying to explain for ancient generations. So I'd like to read a quote from Pete Enns' book, How the Bible Actually Works, because I think it will help us think about what it means to be people of faith in ancient times and in modern times. So he says, this is the question that is ever before us, as every generation tries to pass on the faith of the past, which comes to us from an ancient time and in an ancient book, to the next generation that occupies its own unique moment in time and space. This is quoted from page 124. So in my own words, I've paraphrased what he writes on the next page. It says the God of the Bible is how the ancients imagined God and reimagined God in real times and places. It is God as he was experienced, thought about, and written about during the time of their existence. And we touched on this last year as we were going through our studies, saying that how did people in that time see God? He was a God who walked among them, a God who was a warrior God and was on their side. He was a God who protected them and led them. But he was also sometimes a God who was violent in the Old Testament, or that is how people interpreted situations where there were conflict. The God of our times then. So reimagining God in our times is what Christians and Jews have been doing since ancient times. We see this as the writing evolves over time in the Old Testament literature. We can follow this biblical lead by reimagining God in our time and place. And those are my words as I interpreted them from page 125. This is a painting of the call of Samuel, where you have the elderly priest Eli in the night, and Samuel comes to him because he has been hearing the call of God. So this painting is in a gallery in Scotland. It's called Eli and Samuel, and it's by William Brassey Holt. And so in 1 Samuel, we have the call of the boy Samuel, and it says, in those days, messages from the Lord were very rare and visions were quite uncommon. The central story of chapter 3 is introduced in verse 1. The word of the Lord is infrequent and visions have become rare in Israel. What is about to happen to Samuel is so unusual that this call from God introduces us to the unique leadership role of Samuel. Verse 7 explains that during the night, Samuel was experiencing the word of the Lord, but he did not know it. So he's a young boy. He's being raised by the priest in the tabernacle, and he's probably just doing errands and small things that small young people could do. And this is his first call from God, the voice of God. And it was so infrequent in those times that even Eli didn't recognize it for what it was in the beginning when Samuel first came to him. And Samuel was like previous judges. He is called by God in a time of spiritual desolation, religious corruption, political danger, and social upheaval. The word of the Lord is rare. The sons of Eli are corrupt. The Philistines are about to threaten Israel's survival. The pressures to move toward a kingship become overwhelming. So a crisis is at hand, just like during the days of the judges in their history. past times that whenever there was a crisis, the people would cry out for help. And in that case, a judge would be sent to help them settle the political crisis. And here we have the same thing. Here is Samuel. When he grows up, he is going to be dealing with the crisis of the Philistines invading Israel. Samuel is called a deliverer, is called to deliver a harsh message of judgment that is necessary if there is to be a hopeful new beginning for Israel. Samuel's experience is difficult, and so is the message that he is told to bring. And this is the message relayed to him in chapter 3, verses 11 through 14. And then the Lord said to Samuel, I'm about to do a shocking thing in Israel. I'm going to carry out all of my threats against Eli and his family from beginning to end. I have warned him that judgment is coming upon his family forever because his sons are blaspheming God and he hasn't disciplined them. So I have vowed that the sins of Eli and his sons will never be forgiven by sacrifices or offerings. So this is a pretty serious threat, because bringing sacrifice and offering to the tabernacle on behalf of a situation such as Eli might for his sons would be a way of having forgiveness, but he's being forbidden to do this. As Samuel grew up, the Lord was with him, and everything Samuel said proved to be reliable. And all Israel, from Dan in the north to Beersheba in the south, knew that Samuel was confirmed as a prophet of the Lord. The Lord continued to appear at Shiloh and gave messages to Samuel there at the tabernacle. And Samuel's words went out to all the people of Israel. So he was growing in respect by the people, and they accepted his judgment and his prophecy. In 1 Samuel 3:2, it says, one night Eli, who was almost blind by now, had gone to bed. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was sleeping in the tabernacle near the ark of God. So I had some thoughts about this, maybe some connections. In scripture, light is frequently used as a metaphor in the Bible, such as the light of the world, or let there be light, or a lamp unto your feet, a light on a hill, or a light under a basket. Those are some of the connections that I could think of to the light. Samuel is sleeping in the tabernacle near the Ark of the Covenant. Now, is he very near to the light of God? Is the light of God's word almost extinguished under Eli? Because it says that the lamp is nearing extinguishing because it's near the dawn. Is it the time for the end of Eli's light and the bringing on of Samuel's light? Now we'll change to the threat of the Philistines, which is what Samuel is facing as time goes on. And he continues his adult priesthood and prophecy. This is the problem. This is the crisis that needed judgment or leadership. And Samuel is there to advise. This is a picture of the Philistines who are stealing the Ark of the Covenant and bringing it into one of the Philistine temples. Now, the Philistines worshipped a god named Dagon, who is depicted like part like a fish, and part like a man, so he's sort of like a mermaid. Maybe this is a depiction of the fact that they are a seafaring people and have moved in along the coast of the Mediterranean, because their god is representing something from the ocean or the sea. So we know that once the Philistines steal the Ark of the Covenant during a battle, that they take this ark and they think that they can bring it into their temples or places of worship, and that it will be a benefit to them because they have now stolen this thing that protects the Israelites and gives them their power. So here's the scenic route that the Ark of the Tabernacle takes, or I mean the Ark of the Covenant, and it's about 100 miles long over a period of time. Starting out, when they left to battle the Philistines, they left Shiloh and they took the Ark with them. And the first encounter they had was near Ebenezer, the camp of Israel's army, and waiting for to encounter the Philistines, and that is where the Ark of the Covenant was stolen in battle. And then it was taken to various places along a route that totally added up to about 100 miles from Shiloh back to Jerusalem. And so it goes in this route, going all crisscross through the hills and near the coast and back inland again until it finally arrives back in Jerusalem, or back at Shiloh, and then is taken to Jerusalem. So now let's watch a video that is called the Ark Narrative. It is basically gives us a description of the encounters with the Philistines, and we'll see what Professor Amy Jill has to say.
The very loosely knit tribal confederacy under the charismatic leaders called judges has now completely disintegrated. But some need for a government still remains because the Philistine threat is still there. Consequently, when we move into 1 Samuel, we will find the need for the monarchy recited over and over again. But 1 Samuel does not begin with a monarchy. To the contrary, it begins with the birth of Samuel in what looks like a very calm and pleasant society, as if somehow we're back to the good old days when people were not being raped or chopped into bits. The beginning of the story of Samuel portends good things for Israel. We have an account of a married couple, and we haven't seen them in a while. But here a married couple who actually seem to love each other. Hannah, a woman, and her husband Elkanah, and every year they go up to the local shrine at Shiloh to offer sacrifices. Nobody attacks them on the way. It looks quite good. But it turns out that Hannah is distressed because Hannah has no children. We've seen this before. And not only does Hannah replay the literary convention, the type scene of a barren woman to whom an annunciation will be given, but it may well be that Hannah, in her loneliness, in her barrenness, represents the loss that the community still feels, that somehow she embodies a sense of hope, a sense of needing to be fulfilled. She represents the community here on a very positive level. She also resembles all those infertile women from Genesis. Like Sarah and like Rachel, there is a fertile co-wife there. Her name is Peninnah. And Hannah simply cannot bear the fact that her husband has children with the co-wife. So every year when they go up to the shrine at Shiloh, Hannah prays for a child. And her husband simply can't understand why Hannah is so desperate. And he says to her at one point, "Am I not more to you than 10 sons?" And she answers not. Because for a woman who can't have a child in Hannah's case, the answer is no, you're not. Hannah goes up to the shrine and prays passionately for a child. And she actually offers a vow, but here a positive one, unlike Jephthah's. She prays, Lord of hosts, if you will only take notice of my trouble, and you will remember me, if you will not forget me, but grant me offspring, then I shall give the child to the Lord for the whole of his life, and no razor shall ever touch his head. He, like Samson, will be a Nazirite. Samson the Nazirite is a fool. Samuel the Nazirite is a genius. She prays her prayer, and Eli the priest at Shiloh looks at her and notices that her lips are moving and her eyes are closed and she's fervently praying. And he thinks she's drunk. And he says to her, put away your wine, woman. This is not the way you should behave at the house of God. And she explains to him, no, I've been praying for a child. And Eli recognizes the depth and concern that she shows. And here, another renunciation. He tells her, yes, you will have a child. Eli is ready to recognize true piety. The lives of Eli and Hannah's child Samuel will be intertwined. Because just as Eli originally is unable to realize the depth of Hannah's prayer, so too there are gaps in his own life. It turns out he has two sons who are also priests, but he simply cannot control them. And we learn as early as chapter 2 that his sons are serving at the sacrifices, and they're taking the best cuts of meat for themselves, and worse, they're actually having sex with some of the women who are coming up to the shrine. This simply cannot stay. And we learned that although God had promised Eli that his children would always, the expression goes, go in and out before me forever, always serve as priests at Yahweh's altar, God simply cannot stand this apostasy in which the priests are engaged, and he says that promise is now revoked. So God's loyalties will shift to Samuel. In celebration of her motherhood, because Hannah does in fact become pregnant and does in fact have a child, she sings a magnificent hymn called the Song of Hannah. This is a staple, the woman making celebration not only over victory but also over pregnancy. We've seen women's victory songs with Deborah. We've seen a short victory song with Miriam at the Song of the Sea. And for those within the Christian tradition, Hannah's song becomes the model for Mary's Magnificat at the beginning of Luke, when Mary celebrates the birth of Jesus. This song is, however, less a paean to childbirth. It's less thanking God for the fact that Hannah herself has had a child than it is, well, a political manifesto. Hannah is expressing national yearnings. She predicts in her song social upheaval where the mighty are brought down and the weak are raised up. And she also speaks about her own changing circumstances, but in broader terms, the barren are made fertile. And that will finally be what will happen to the kingdom of Israel. Hannah bears her son Samuel. She nurses him, and when she weans him, she makes good on her vow. And she takes him up to the shrine at Shiloh and puts him in trust to Eli the priest. And Samuel begins to serve at God's altar. And that's where his call comes from, as he's there serving for God. And by the way, his mother never actually leaves him. We're told in this very, very delicate note that every year Hannah would come up to the shrine at Shiloh with a little coat, a little cloak that she had made for him. The mother's love continues. Hannah has not forgotten Samuel, and nor has God. And finally, the word of the Lord, we're told, was rare in those days, but it comes to Samuel when he is lying down in the temple where the ark of God was. We're now in 1 Samuel chapter 3. Samuel hears a voice. He thinks it's Eli the priest calling, so he runs into Eli's room and says, "What can I do for you?" And Eli says, "Go back to sleep. I didn't call." By the third time, Eli realizes, it's God calling. And he tells Samuel to be prepared and to tell God that he, Samuel, is ready. God commissions Samuel to be his messenger, and by the end of chapter 3, we're told Samuel grew and the Lord was with him, and as the expression goes, let none of his words fall to the ground. In other words, everything that Samuel said was heeded by the people, and everything that Samuel said was given to him by God. And all Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, from top to bottom, north to south, knew that Samuel was established as a prophet of the Lord, as the text continues. For the Lord revealed himself to Samuel at Shiloh. And this portends great things for Israel. It looks really good. Samuel combines the strength of Israel's earlier leaders like Moses. God speaks to him and the people listen. Like Aaron, he's got priestly duties because he's serving at the shrine. Like Joshua, he's able to unite the people from Dan to Beersheba and they listen to him. And Samuel indeed sets up a witness stone in testimony to his truth, just like Joshua did at the covenant ceremony at Shechem. And like Deborah, we're told about Samuel chapter 7. He judged Israel all the days of his life. He looks like the perfect leader. He's got the ear of the people, and God loves him. But there's still no centralized government, and the Philistines are still out there. And somebody's got to help out. And we actually find out that a need for a centralized government and a standing military is not only just a need, but it's essential. The story of Samuel, his birth and then his death notice, provides the frame for what's called the Ark narrative. Samuel, as we know, had been at the shrine of Shiloh with the Ark, but when the Israelites go into battle, the Ark goes with them. And what happens in chapter 4 is that the Ark is captured by the Philistines, and during that capture, the two sons of Eli, those wicked apostatizing priests, are slain. When the Ark is captured, a Benjamite who happened to be fighting on Israel's side comes to Eli, who was 98 years old at the time and blind. And he tells Eli, the Ark of the Lord has been captured, your sons are slain. And Eli, who's sitting on a stool, and we're told he's very heavy, he falls over and he dies. And the news also comes to his daughter-in-law, the wife of Phinehas, one of his children. She's pregnant and she gives birth prematurely. And in her last moment, she names her child, she calls him Ichabod, which means the glory has departed from Israel. So here again, a child represents the community's fate. And at this point, the Deuteronomic historian, whom, as we've already seen in the book of Judges, can move from farce to pathos and farce very quickly, actually moves from this highly emotional scene of a dead priest and a dead daughter-in-law and a premature baby to a farce. And we have the Ark narrative, the story of the peripatetic Ark being dragged from Philistine city to Philistine city. In fact, some biblical scholars have suggested this too is a literary convention. We have from the ancient Near East stories of gods represented by their statues being moved from town to town to town, either being in exile because of war or deserting their people because they don't like the way their people are behaving. Here's the Ark representing God. The Philistines bring the Ark to the Philistine temple at Ashdod, and there's an idol there called Dagon. And unfortunately, Dagon the idol keeps bowing down to the Ark, so the Philistines have to upright Dagon again, and then Dagon bows down again and falls to pieces. The citizens of Ashdod say, we better get rid of this Ark, so they ship the Ark off to Gath, which is where Goliath is from, and we'll meet Goliath when we finally meet King David. What exactly happens to the people in Gath is not quite clear. It depends upon how you want to translate the Hebrew. They either broke out into tumors or they broke out into hemorrhoids. Either way, it's not a good scene. So the Gathites ship the Ark to Ekron. The people in Ekron cry out, quote, they have brought around to us the Ark of the God of Israel to slay us and our people. So the people of Ekron don't want it either. And they finally, after consulting with their own priests, come to the conclusion that they will leave it up to some god, either theirs or the one of Israel, to determine what to do with the Ark. They tie the Ark to two cows that have just calved, 2 milk cows. The idea is, if you are a cow, unlikely to happen, and you have just had a calf, you need that calf to nurse, because otherwise you, the cow, will simply explode with built-up milk. The idea is the cows would probably stay in Philistine territory to be near their calves. But what we're told is the two cows, looking neither left nor right, mooing as they go, head back toward Israelite territory and bring the Ark back home. They head to Beth Shemesh, where the Levites pick up the Ark, dispatch the cows as a sacrifice to God, and the Ark remains in Israelite territory for 20 years, until David establishes his capital in Jerusalem in 2 Samuel 6 and brings the Ark up there. But God will not always rescue the people quite as easily with tumors and falling down idols. We need a king to help out, and that's what we get next.
All right. And so we have a quick summary there of the first encounters with the Philistines. And I rather like the story about the ark, seeing how, whether it's true or not, it's pretty funny to see or think about them having tumors or hemorrhoids. I kind of like the idea that they had hemorrhoids. And here is a depiction also of the cows who are heading back to the Israelite territory. It's a painting, but I don't have any history on it. All right, to wrap it up, we have finally just kind of a summary here, how God raised up Samuel and deposed Eli. And it says, Judges tells the abuse of women. Judges tells of the abuse of women. So it is no surprise when Samuel begins with Hannah's suffering oppression from a rival wife. The Lord delivers Hannah from shame by giving her a son, Samuel, whom she dedicates to the Lord. The Lord chooses Samuel as his prophet, while he judges Eli's house for its failure to honor him. Eli's wicked sons die in battle. The Philistines captured the ark, and Eli dropped dead. The ark devastates the Philistines, who return it to Israel. Israel repents, the Lord defeats the Philistines, and Samuel leads Israel well. So it's kind of the same pattern as we had all throughout Judges, with Samuel being the current judge. And the story will take a different turn as we get into the next section. The next reading for next week that I suggest is you continue on Samuel, the first book of Samuel, chapters 9 through 15. And we will encounter and finally meet Saul, who becomes the first king. And we will learn about his reign, which seemed to be full of all kinds of problems. But he did definitely encounter the Philistines, along with his many personal problems that he had. We'll take a look at those. To end this week, I have this poem by Edwina Gateway. It's called There Was No Path, So I Trod One. This is my prayer, that though I may not see, I be aware of the silent God who stands by me. That though I may not feel, I be aware of the mighty love which doggedly follows me. That though I may not respond, I be aware that God, my silent, mighty God, waits each day, quietly, hopefully, persistently, waits each day and through each night for me alone. And finally, our ending cartoon for the week. Here we have Samuel bothering Eli during the night. After repeated visits in the night, Eli at first became exasperated with young Samuel. And Eli says, that Sam I am, that Sam I am. I do not like that Sam I am. A little reference to Dr. Seuss there, if you didn't catch that. Anyway, so next week, we will continue with Samuel, and we will start off with the service of King Saul.